So, Michael, how was your weekend?
It was great. We're here in Florida, so Sunshine State, got a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of rain, and no cold weather. So it was great. How was your weekend?
My weekend was awesome. I actually was able to stay in bed all day on Saturday, which I have to thank my kids for that one because they really helped me out with that one. They were not super needy.
That's always a positive coming into the work week on Monday.
Yeah,
Have some energy left.
I think I needed a day to just do nothing after the kind of stop and go week that I had with being sick. And then that set me up for Sunday to be pretty productive. Um, but yeah, I was really looking forward to actually sitting down and talking with you today because a lot of my friends who own businesses, they talk to me all the time about what some of their fears are with scaling up and with managing all of the different fiscal responsibilities that come with a growing company and stuff like that. And so, because I'm not affiliated with, I'm not acquainted with numbers and accounting and all that stuff very well. Tell me some of the ways that you remove a lot of that stress for the people that you work with. People like me who are kind of illiterate when it comes to accounting and might be even a little paranoid.
Well, sure. I mean, that's exactly why I started this company. Was I was seeing a lot of individuals, myself included in that were getting stressed out by just the nitty gritty grind of, I've got these internal deadlines and I've got these things and other people that are counting on me potentially. And I have another master that I'm answering to. And in many ways, you never get out of that in any sort of business. But really, I've found, especially, and maybe it's more prevalent in the last few months, that really having a goal and identifying what you're passionate about really is the starting point for every conversation I have with somebody.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, that could go from anywhere from musicians and to people that are talking about writing code and doing engineering for like video games or something of that nature. It's all the same. It's you. Everybody's still a person. They still have ideals and what is important to them, and how they're going to get there, and how their business is going to provide that pathway for them to do that. And certainly there's stresses amongst that. I'll be the first one to tell you that I get stressed out, even seeing, knowing this stuff is coming. And that's sometimes half the battle, is just the knowledge that yes, this is going to be hard, and I know some of these obstacles that are coming. But the uncertainty, I think, scares a lot of people away, and then they stop making their own choices for their goals, and they start just making choices for the day to day. And in some cases, you have to do that, and not to get bogged down in that. But it's mainly looking and saying, well, how can I get my business to do what I like? Or I like this one set of my business. Maybe it's not the most profitable set, but can I make it more profitable? Can I do something that I really enjoy doing and make a living doing it? And I love just having those conversations with people and really diving into it and saying, yes, you can, or maybe this isn't the right time. And, what are the identifying markers to say this is the right time? So different things.
Would you, okay, so I was trying to figure out how to ask this. What are some of the most common blind spots that you see that people have specifically when it comes to accounting?
Um, I think most people think that accounting is just somebody, or an accountant is just somebody that's really good at math. And I can assure you that although I have pretty good math skills, or at least I'd like to think that I do, it's really, again, about identifying what are the rules, and how do we make that work for us? And that's more along the lines of tax. And then you get into more of the day-to-day, which is the bookkeeping and what is, what sort of expenses do I have, margin, like if I'm selling a product or am I selling a service? And if I'm selling a service, what is my time really worth? And if I'm selling a product, what is the product really worth? Products are normally a little easier because you've got supply and demand, and service is similar in that you have a demand for a service that you're providing, but how high is that demand, and is it defined by the location that you're in, and different things of that nature. So I think really the starting point in accounting is willing to have that conversation to say, okay, this is what I'm trying to do, this is what I think it's worth, and then identifying the rules, because for I would say 95% of the people out there, the most important thing in accounting is going to be the tax return at the end of the year, because that's going to define how much money you owe, or have already paid, or anything like that. And for many companies, that's really the ending statement. And I say that knowing that most people, eventually want to buy a house, or they want to buy a car, and to do those things you need credit, and in order to do credit you need to show that you have income, and to show that you have income you need to file the tax return. Larger companies get a little bit more complicated, and they need audits and reviews and things of that nature, but the main bulk of it is just identifying what's deductible, what is really a business expense. And once you define, okay, what is a business expense, then you can set up your accounting background of saying, okay, this is how I'm going to keep my records. For some people, it's just easier. Hey, I'll just do it on Excel or Google Sheets, or whatever is the most convenient method for them. And then other people need bigger services like QuickBooks Online. I know a lot of people that love QuickBooks Online because and that's not a promo for QuickBooks Online necessarily, but it's yeah, but it's what is easiest for you to do your job. And I normally like to say that when in conversations with people, it's my job as an accountant is to understand you and your business as best that I can, but I'm never going to understand you and your business as well as you do. And I think any accountant should be honest with that statement and say, you're really good at selling whatever product or service that you have, and that's why you're doing what you're doing. But it's my job as an accountant to say, okay, well, I'm going to do all of this back office stuff, or teach you how to do the small amounts of back office things, to set up your accounting style for A, your lifestyle, and B, a pathway to get to your goals.
How long have you been doing this?
Around 10 years, a little longer than 10 years, I think now.
Was this always something you wanted to do?
I originally wanted to be an engineer. I started life doing a lot of mechanic work, and I thought that that was the path that I wanted to go down. But I was always curious of the financial world and kind of investing and people that that do that sort of thing. So that's where I kind of started my path when I went through Elon University.
And so what trends are you seeing right now when it comes to accounting? Because 2020 has been this has been a different year for the books.
Yeah, I have to say this is a very unique year. I haven't seen very many static companies, and by that I mean companies that have said they've had a normal year. I talked to a lot of people that are hurting because they're like, the restaurant industry is just almost face planted in many ways. And then I've talked to like landscaping companies and construction workers and things of that nature, and their business is booming because people are at home more. They're working from home. They're and having that, they're trying to improve kind of their area.
So you know what? I got to be honest with you. This podcast is all about the fact that I have anxiety, and one of the issues that I have with accounting, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, is that I always hype up accounting issues and tax issues. And I mean, when I say issues, I just mean the simple act of even addressing these things. I always hype those up to be something really, really big and scary. And because I think it's because it involves the IRS. And I'm like, oh no, what if I did something wrong? And then the IRS is going to take my whole life away.
For sure, for sure. I'd even break that down more to say I talk to people that are just nervous about talking anything accounting because it deals with finance, and money is always a scary subject to talk about, and people get anxious with that. I mean, that's again, you know, that one of the reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing is because I have control over, and I know we've kind of had private conversations about this, where I like to be available to people, where you know, I don't charge by the minute or by the phone call or anything like that. You know, let's have a conversation. And that's to kind of break that mold a little bit of the old school train of thought of, well, I don't want to call my accountant because this may be a stupid question, or, you know, it feels like, oh, I've got to go to school and I've got to, you know, talk to this guy. You know, I live this accounting life every day. So, and I try to talk to as many people as I can, even if I'm not necessarily helping them, but just listening to issues that they've had and how they've resolved them, because that allows me to help people that do get stressed out about having these conversations, so that when we do, we can take that stress and say, hey, you know, you were stressing over this for 2-3 hours, maybe even days, weeks. It's a 5-minute conversation at most, on most of the, you know, and just trying to break that mold to say, hey, you know, I don't have all the answers, and I don't have a crystal ball. Although at times I wish I did. My life might be a little bit different, but not too much if I had one. But it's to say, look, you know, I don't have all the answers, but we're going to walk through this together, and you're not alone. And I think in accounting and in taxation, that's always the case. I mean, any small business owner, when you're out there, you get extremely anxious about where's the money coming from? Are we going to make it, you know, to the next pay, you know, till I get paid next? Or are we expanding too quickly? Am I hiring enough employees? Like, where's the work coming from? Maybe I've got too much work. Is my product or service suffering? And it's the ability to say, A, I'm not alone. There's somebody that I can talk to. Whether that's, and normally I know most people's thoughts is, now let me not go, I don't want to go talk to the boring accountant or whatever it is. But again, we're trying to break that mold. It's accounting problems are solvable. In accounting, there's always an equals. There's always another side of the equation. We just have to figure out what that is.
And
communication
gets us there.
Yeah. So it's that open dialogue, and in many ways, and I've had this before with clients where you know, I wasn't able to answer their question immediately, and that's because, and I, you know, my style is a little bit more straightforward maybe than some, but I say, look, you know, I'd like to research this a little bit more, just to make sure that we're going to get the right answer. And the right answer doesn't necessarily have to say, you know, black and white, right, wrong, like, you know, one side or the other. It's, we need to make sure we're making the right answer for you. And I have conversations with people all the time that say, you know, kind of like what you mentioned, I'm nervous about the IRS or somebody like that. And the question is, can we make a reasonable argument for the position that we're taking? And if we can't, we shouldn't really be making that decision. But if we can, let's document what we're doing, you know, reading all the regulations that there are surrounding that. And if there is a letter, you know, it's not that the IRS is picking on you. It's don't panic. We're going to respond to the letter. And I know that's the knee-jerk reaction most people have is, oh no, the IRS has sent me this letter. Like, well, I'm just going to pay it or whatever. That's in some cases, there is reason to be concerned, but in very, very rarely have I had to actually get on the phone with an IRS agent and say, what's going on here? Like, do we need to get an audit or something like that? It's mostly, hey, we can just respond with a letter. They get back to us within 30 to 90 days and the issue's resolved. And then we have a documented course of this is our answer, this is why we made this decision, and this is the regulation, and this is how we read it. And most of the time they're just like, okay. So not to be super concerned about anything like that. But again, it's that conversation of saying, we realize we might get a letter, or, if we do, this is how we're going to respond to it. Different avenues.
I like that you're an accounting buddy. You're somebody who is around to make the accounting process as non-threatening and scary as possible for people, which is a stark contrast, I think, to how we see most accountants and accounting spoken about and represented and things like that. And I wonder if part of that has to do with some of what we've seen happen in the past that was related to accounting, where accounting was not being done correctly or it wasn't being done truthfully. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or whatnot, but there's a very different approach that I see coming from you than what I've seen represented before. And so I like that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, okay, I can keep talking to him because he's not freaking me out. But at the same time, I'm like, I wonder if that's a growth from some of the other developments. I mean, I know that in my field with teaching and with writing, I've seen how the trends have changed with like just people don't want to write 10-page papers when they're in high school, so they don't require that anymore. And so, that's the kind of stuff that I'm referring to. Like what I was watching on YouTube was about that Enron scandal from 20 years ago.
For sure, for sure. I mean, there's, when you go to school to become an accountant, they go over a lot of these really big don'ts. And whether you're an enrolled agent, a CPA, or a preparer like myself, you have to take, or if you don't have to, I would recommend that you take ethics as part of your continuing education. And that's a really big part for, fraud and all those big kind of scary terms that get thrown around. And I like to say that we're in the trust industry, right? So it's very similar to a lawyer or a doctor, or even your profession. I mean, somebody comes to you and they're telling you their secrets, and you're giving them advice as the person of wisdom, and have to be very aware of what information you're trying to provide to the individual. But I wouldn't say that I'm completely new school. I do accounting a lot of the old school ways. I mean, I still prefer QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online because I'm just that old school accounting style. I like to have it on my computer, and I like to know what's going on and be able to work in the background on stuff. And at times, I mean, like I'll bring out a sheet of paper and I'll start working on T accounts. Debits and credit, we'll get really old school and just so I can map it out. And that's kind of the roots. But at the same time, I'm young enough, and although I've been in this industry, like we were talking about, for a decade, a little more than a decade now, I'm aware that I don't know everything. And even, I try to talk to other professionals in this industry, and I get advice from them, and sometimes they take advice from me, and it's, feedback both ways. But the point that I'm trying to make is that you don't have to be that multi-million-dollar client that, gets to come to the boardroom and gets taken on golfing trips and things like that to be buddy. It's you're a client. We're in this for a long-term relationship, which means I'm trying to understand you and your growth over a period of time. And that makes me more efficient at my job, and allows me to advise you on tax strategies or tax planning, dependent upon what your, again, what your end goal is. What are you trying to do and where you're trying to be at? And I really feel that having that conversation and really displaying that willingness to communicate to somebody, not just as another number. I mean, you know, you can talk to certain accountants, and at, you know, during our busy time of year, it's like, oh, that's that accountant that made X number of dollars or had this very weird tax situation. I look at clients as this is what they're doing. Like, this is kind of fascinating. This is how they do it. This is how they're different, because everybody's different. And I take things from every client. You know, although, you know, I'm not a non-for-profit, you know, I am doing this to be in business, and I'm married, and I do have other obligations like that. I look at this as a relationship that I'm going to be with you for 5, 10, 15 plus years, and I've got to make it worth your while to stay. And while we move along that time period, you're going to learn new things. And as you learn new things, by extension, I'm also going to learn things about your industry and business. And that's going to be able to help me help other people, and design strategies, and, you know, have these meeting of the minds with other people in my industry that allows me to say, oh, this is what they're doing, or this is what the IRS is cracking down on now. And are we making substantial arguments that cover us for tax strategies that we're putting in place, or bookkeeping methods, or, you know, something simple as, are you ready for that employee? You know, is it time in your business that you're ready for that jump? And identify markers.
How do people identify if they're really ready?
That's a hard question. I think that's industry specific. Really, the key is saying, I'm comfortable with first you have to be comfortable with the income that you're making, and knowing that you're going to be running a risk. And the first employee is always the hardest. Number 2 and number 3, you know, it doesn't get any easier necessarily, but that first jump is always the hardest, because depending upon what industry you're in and what you're trying to accomplish, maybe you just need help to free yourself up, just free up some administrative time, where you're not doing follow-up emails or calendars or answering phone calls, or things like that. And although those things are very important to your business, you're better suited, or your time is more valuable in other areas. So that's freeing time up for you to expand, versus the individual that needs employees to grow their business. So ROI, you know, return of investment. Am I gonna, you know, if I bring in this person and they're going to cost me $30 to $50 to $80 to $100,000 a year, are they going to bring that into the company? And how long is it going to take them to do that? So, you know, it's that type of question, and really understanding what stage are you in life, in business, and again, where are you trying to get to? And I know I keep harping on that goal and where you're trying to get to, but that's so important in any sort of advising situation, because a tax return, and I'll just give you, for instance, if you're just a small LLC out there and you're struggling with the day-to-day, but your goal is in 3 to 5 years to purchase a house, and that's what, you know, you love what you're doing, but you want to purchase that house in 3 to 5 years. That is a different style tax return than somebody that's saying, hey, I just don't want to pay, you know, I want as many deductions as possible to grow over the next 3 to 5 years. Because with that little piece of information, is the difference of advising of, okay, well, maybe we shouldn't purchase the equipment because we're trying to make our tax return show more income and show more substantial margin for the service or product that we're showing, so that people will lend us money. And that's not necessarily, again, in a fraudulent sense or anything like that. That's just to say, well, instead of trying to roll over as much capital as we can and just really live on a base salary, let's really start talking about take-home pay and what does that look like, and can we maximize it to make it show that, hey, I can earn $50,000 to $100,000 a year, so I can go purchase that $200,000 to or $150,000 to $250,000 home or $300,000 home that I'm wanting, and am I stable enough to do that?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that conversation and understanding where are we trying to get to so that we can make appropriate accounting decisions and time them appropriately. And the same thing with the employees.
So that's interesting about the timing of certain business decisions with regard to what your goals are, because I don't know if that's something that most business owners readily connect in their minds. I know for me, I wasn't doing that, but it makes perfect sense because it's more of like a bird's eye view of what your business dealings are in terms of like planning for that. If we've got this 6 months down the road or a year down the road, then maybe we don't want to make certain decisions because on paper it's going to look different.
Correct. And certain, I know a few mortgage guys, and that, if we're buying a piece of equipment and that's how we're doing business, and they'll kind of take that off of the mortgage application, because we'll have a discussion about it. I'll give them a list of depreciating assets and things of that nature. And that's not to just list a bunch of accounting terms. That's just to have a conversation to say, you need to know who you're dealing with and what they're looking for and what's best going to suit you, and what type of conversation do we need to have for your outlook. And it doesn't matter what stage you're in, whether you're just starting up and you've got that $5,000 to $10,000 a startup that everybody seems to get. I don't know why we're in that magic number of $5,000 to $10,000, but it just seems like everybody needs $5,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
I need $5,000 to $10,000 tomorrow, but that's a different subject. No, it's what stage are you in? How does that compare to somebody else? And we're just looking for the comparison. We're not saying that yours is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just so we can pick things that fit your life and your business better. And by doing that and having the conversation and really identifying other industries and other potential competitors, maybe even in different geographic locations, we can ease some of the stress because we can say, again, we know that these things are going to happen. We can prepare ourselves mentally for these things, and we can establish timelines and goals and markers and say, okay, well, we missed this marker. Our revenue wasn't doing as well as it maybe should have. Why is that? And that's because maybe we had to change our business model because COVID happened or something like that. But identifying as much as we can that will likely happen will help us kind of coordinate what has already or what is currently happening.
Mm-hmm. Are you still doodling?
I am. Okay. I started drawing a tiger, but it's now gone something else.
Well, you've been talking a lot too, so I wasn't sure how much you were actually able to doodle. This is all very informative and I'm enjoying it a lot. So I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you, what's your favorite part of all of this? What makes you the most happy and brings you joy?
It's going to sound a little cliche, but I do really like helping people. I know most people don't go, hey, this accountant's just really helpful. But I'm trying to change that a little bit and say, again, you may only talk to me 2 times during the year, but I don't want you to dread talking to me for those 2 times of the year, because we're going to look at something and hopefully I'll save you some money, or maybe I'll give you an idea that you haven't thought of. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'm just the shoulder that you need to cry on, or maybe I'm the person that you just need to talk to that can listen to your business. But I like having those conversations, and I'm a big foodie, so I try to get people to go out to coffee and stuff with me. I know COVID's kind of slowed that down a lot, but I like doing that to get out of the office. Mm-hmm. And as much for me as for the other person, and let's just have a casual conversation. And you'd be surprised how many things people just realize on their own just by sitting with somebody. And all I've got to say is a few words, and they've had some revelation didn't cost me anything except maybe the cost of a bagel and a cup of coffee, or a sandwich and a cup of coffee, which I wanted anyway. So
Right.
I really, really enjoy getting out with people and having those conversations. And I feel, especially now with COVID and so many people being polarized in so many ways, that the ability that your situation and what's going on is not going to be judged. It's going to, I'm going to basically say, okay, well, what's going on? Kind of the psychologist of accounting, if you will. What's going on? How can we fix it? And what are you doing currently? And you don't necessarily have to have answers to those, but it's the conversation. And it's the ability to know that if you had an idea, you just call me, and we're going to work it out. A friend of mine that I've known since college said basically, I'm investing in people, and I've kind of used that a little bit through my career at this point, but I'm definitely trying to take time and talk to people and figure out what's going on and how can I help them. And that's how my brain's starting to get wired to think. And I don't think it's necessarily a typical accounting style, which is my niche that I found, is to say, hey, you're hurting, or maybe you're doing really well. This is the stage in life you're at. Let me share the experiences that I'm aware of, with client confidentiality and everything, and trying to maintain that. But just be able to give examples and have contacts. And I found that even competitors really want to talk about their experiences. And they like helping new people. It makes them feel good about it. Even if they are direct competitors, a lot of times, they're not trying to give trade secrets away or anything like that, but just to motivate them and say, look, I may be a $10 million business now, but 4 years ago, I was a $10,000 business, and I was doing it part-time. So that's really what motivates me to get up in the morning, is to say, okay, well, I'm that guy that's got my list, which is my Google Calendar, and who are we talking to today? Who needs information from me, and who am I going to be able to help? And that's what I try to do.
Okay. So I know you always tease me and say that you're going to hit me with a bunch of questions. Did you have questions for me today?
Sure. I'm a big proponent of let me throw it back a little bit.
Okay, that's great. I like that too.
So what's always fascinated me is taking the jump. And that's always been a struggle for me to advise somebody to go out on their own. And it's extremely stressful, most people, including myself. And I think it causes a lot of anxiety to people, because sometimes they'll flip the switch completely, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Some people will hold the switch halfway. How do you make that decision? Or how have you made that decision? I mean, you've got your hands in so many cookie jars. How do you juggle it? And how did you make that decision? And how did you know it was right for you?
So the decision to go out on my own was very, very personal. I just felt that when it came to expanding myself and what I was doing and what I was impacting, I wanted to do something more than my job, which at the time was as an instructional designer at a university. But I'll tell you, I really didn't have very much of a vision for how I was going to make that happen. And I learned about 3 months into it that you should probably have some kind of a vision or a plan or something. You should look down the road by a couple of months. And so life got pretty hairy and scary at that point, but I never let myself become separated from my purpose. And I think that that's the reason why I'm still here, is that I recognized that there was something bigger that I was called to do. And I just kept on waking up in the morning and answering that call, especially on the mornings when I didn't want to. And I just wanted to stay in bed and hit ignore. And then eventually, once you've been doing that long enough, you start seeing some of the returns from that. Some of the people who you talked to earlier on in your journey, they suddenly come back around and they have opportunities for you that are paid. Or somebody who you might have connected with from a while ago suddenly hears about an opportunity where someone is looking for somebody who offers exactly what you offer, who is a business coach or who is an accountant or who is an insurance person, because we know some insurance guys too. But whatever the need may be, it's not a matter of if things will work out. It's really about when, but you have to have that resilience and that staying power to hang out until the when comes. And that's hard, because I can tell you that a year ago, I was in a very, very difficult financial situation. I was selling off my stuff to try to put groceries in the refrigerator and food on the table for the kids and keep the lights on, and it was really, really rough. And I think everybody just has to go through that. I think that's just part of the journey, is everyone's going to have their trial, but staying hardwired to my purpose is what helped me to continue going until things actually started picking up.
And would you say you like established those? I mean, obviously you said your vision was kind of being developed as you went, and I know that you're a very passionate individual. So I won't ask that one, because I know you've got to have the passion and the drive to do any sort of startup to make it work. But would you say that it's knowing other people are out there that have helped you, or is it like a defined goal? Or and I know you're a huge, huge family person. Is that like what strengthens you when you're going along? Because everybody's a little different.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you brought up a few different things that I want to hit on if I can. So first and foremost, I like the timeliness of your question about whether or not it's other people who have sort of helped propel me towards my success. At a time like this, when people are so divided and everybody is so on edge and tense with each other, I gotta say, you need to be reaching out to people. And don't just reach out to people through the internet, but actually have the conversation like what we're having right now. I can't actually physically be where you're at right now, but we're having this conversation right now on video. I'm seeing your facial expression. I'm seeing, I'm hearing the tone in your voice. It's a lot harder to diss someone and be rude to someone when you have to look at their face, or when they have to hear your voice and see you doing it. And so I highly recommend to anybody listening to this right now, or anybody who's just looking for advice, yes, connecting with people in this world is still very important, and I encourage it, because you never know who you're going to meet. And also because I don't think that any one success story is comprised of just one person doing it all. I think that everybody had to have help in some sort of a way. So there's that part. What else did you ask me? You asked me, so there's a part about connecting with other people, and then you said something about family and
Goals.
goals.
Like, how did you? Yeah.
Okay, so goals. So when it comes to business coaching, obviously I do a lot of goal setting with the people that I work with, and setting goals properly is probably the biggest advice that I will give to anybody who's looking to establish anything long term. You have to have goals that are measurable, that are meaningful to you. Don't just set it as a goal because you saw somebody else on Facebook set that as a goal, but it's a goal that you actually want to accomplish. And it's something that's tangible. So it's not so much about like, I want to feel good about myself, but it's about, no, I want to build confidence from knowing that I've completed my certification, or that I have completed this 30-day fitness program, regardless of what the results are. Just know that you completed it. You went through the whole thing. But having goals that are defined well, that helps people to achieve them and succeed. And then, yes, the last part with regard to family is that my business coach taught me that I have to have balance in order for any of this to work. So the reason why I came out on my own to be an entrepreneur is because I wanted that flexibility, so that when my kids come and they run inside my office and interrupt me and stuff, I can say, okay, just a moment, and I can go and help with that because I'm here. But if I'm always spending time in my office writing, if I'm always doing interviews, if I'm always recording podcasts, I can't hang out with them. So knowing how to say, okay, time's up for work today, and I'm logging off, and I'm not going to look at email, and I'm not going to respond to text messages. And this is going to be my time to go to the beach with my family, or have a date night with my husband, or just sit on the couch by myself in silence sometimes, because sometimes I need that too.
Yeah, in accounting, we call that almost at the cash cow phase, and I think that's a big lesson that a lot of people have a hard time with, and I'm certainly a victim of it myself. Is to say, this is my time now. I will get with you tomorrow, or I will do this tomorrow, and having that balance. And I think I didn't want to go too boring on the podcast today and talk about numbers and tax codes and changes and things of that nature, but defining what you are and what you're doing and where you want to go is so critical in just relieving your as a business owner, relieving the stress of saying, okay, well, if I make somewhat quantifiable markers and they're obtainable where I can get to them, and I have backing of other people, the accounting structure is just going to follow you. And you can build that behind you because you already know at that point, maybe not in the sense of being able to write it out or something like that, but you know who you are, and you can, from that, build a business or a life. If even if you're not a small business owner, you're just an individual out there that likes the daily grind, or wants is fine with the daily grind, and you can measure those and say, okay, this is how I'm going to make taxation work for me, or this is how I'm going to make bookkeeping or payroll or whatever it happens to be work for me to get me to where I need to go and to what's going to make me happiest and provide me that sustainability and joy in life. Mm-hmm. I know, we all have hobbies and things like that, and that's what I normally tell people to start with. That's why I love doing the video chats with you, because I always see that guitar in the background, and it makes me jealous that I just don't have the rhythm to play. And but it's your story. You're defining it, and you're literally writing your story out as you live on. And I'm basically recording people's lives as accounting, and I'm reporting that to the IRS. But we'll overlook the reporting side just for the sake of conversation. But it's just trying to figure out what somebody likes to do and how do we make that work for you. And that's, I think, what it's all about.
Yeah. And I would say too that it is possible to figure out how to monetize what it is that you like to do. So like a lot of times people think that, they have this passion, but they don't see anybody making money doing it. And so they think that they can't make money doing it. But that's not true. The difference though is that you have to be comfortable with having that mindset that is not searching for the path that has already been cleared, but instead is willing to forge a path yourself. I mean, if you don't see somebody else doing it, but you can think of it and you can imagine how it works, make it happen. There are people on YouTube right now who they go on YouTube Live and they discuss a couple of topics and they interact with the people who are chatting with them, and they rake in like $500 in super chats just doing that. That was something that 10 years ago, if somebody would have said, oh yeah, my job is as a YouTuber, we would have laughed at them. Like, what, you're a YouTuber? YouTube is some little website where they put videos. It's not even real, like people would have laughed it off and said, there's no way. But now you've got career counselors who are making a killing on YouTube, making videos. You got chefs, you ex-professors, tons of people go on there and they share their expertise and they make money that way. Same thing with all of the things that we do. I mean, you have your very tailored approach to accounting that demystifies this industry for people and makes it something that's accessible for people like me who would readily be so nervous about that. Like talking to you, I'm like, yeah, I'd love to talk to him about accounting. That is so new for me because normally I'm just like, okay, the accountant's calling here, give him these papers. I don't want to talk to him, and that's it. And then I just hope for the best. And so, but that is something that I know I've never seen before. My best friend's husband is a CPA. He is a partner in a firm. So he runs a whole firm with like 3 or 4 other accountants. And so I think that his model is a little bit different because they also have longstanding clientele that they've had on their books for a while because it was his dad's firm and then he became a partner. So, I mean, even in seeing that, I'm like, okay, he goes about things more in the traditional sense that I'm used to. And he's always said to me, you can ask me any questions that you want. You can always talk to me. And I know he means it, but I never go to him because he's one of those old school accountants. And I'm like, oh, no, you're freaking me out. But somebody like you who is much more, I don't know, I keep coming back to this word of accessibility, but that is probably the biggest thing that jumps out about you and your services for me, for somebody like me who gets nervous by accounting. That is a huge plus. So don't be afraid to establish the path that maybe hasn't been cleared. If that's your passion and if that's what you're good at, then talk to some people, work the idea over in your head some more, and you can come up with a way to make money doing that. I didn't know that I could come up with a way to make money helping people reach their goals until someone told me that, yeah, it's called a certified business coach.
For sure, for sure. And I think again, it's just important for anybody just to realize that, so everybody had to start somewhere, right? So and it is stressful and it is going to cause anxiety. And I don't know a single business owner that I can't say was very stressed out or anxious in the early even years of their business. So and I think that's it's the relatability and saying, even though as time progresses now, we're going more and more virtual. It's still interaction, and it's still such a vital part of society and just being part of humanity. So I think it's just very important to be able to sit down and have that conversation with somebody, whether it's like what we do when we're on Zoom or grabbing that cup of coffee with a neighbor or whatever it may be. I think it's so vital to the success of both people, whether that's mentally or in the business sense and monetarily. I'll say like one of the biggest influencers that has really popped up is like Keanu Reeves has been around for years, but more recently he's just getting praised for being a nice guy, and different things like that. I mean, who knew 10 years ago, even when I started doing this, that there was going to be this thing called Instagram and Instagram influencers out there. I mean, if you have a niche that you think, hey, I'd like to try this out, there's nothing stopping you but you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's plenty of room at the table, and there's not nearly as many obstacles as I think a lot of us imagine that there are between ourselves and where we want to be. But it's a process getting past that, I think, because I know when that pops up for me now, I can easily recognize that and say, okay, stop, that's anxiety, move that out of the way. But for years and years and years, I let that be something that deterred me, and sometimes it still does, I won't lie. But something else that I heard too, and this is something that I've talked about with a few of my friends this year, is that I think one of the problems that we have in our world right now is that people don't know how to communicate with each other. I think people are angry. I think people are hurt. and everybody's hurt and anger and frustration. I believe that it is all valid. Now, as far as the actions that come after that, that's the part that is debatable. But I think that every single person who's feeling things right now, they have a right to feel those things. So I'm not negating that necessarily, but it's charging us all up to be so triggered that we don't even know how to ask questions of each other without being, just putting that extra something on there that doesn't need to be. There used to be that extra message of courtesy and respect and kindness, and now it's kind of like, oh, I'm going out of my way to let you know that if I don't like what you have to say, I'm going to shut you down. It's like, oh man, we are at war with each other when we really don't need to be. But I see this in law enforcement. I don't think that civilians know how to interact with law enforcement, which is part of why we're seeing a lot of the problems that we're seeing. But also with your field, with accounting, I think that a lot of times people are afraid to speak up or even speak in general because they're like fearful of some consequence or some boogeyman's going to come after them. But talking to your accountant, I mean, that's going to get you talking about your goals, talking about where you want to go, talking about solutions if you communicate. But
For sure. And I think it's so vital to identify somebody that you work well with. I know that although I try to be everybody's cup of tea, I know that I'm not, and that's perfectly fine. But again, it doesn't. To me, my model is it doesn't matter if you're the $10,000 client or you're the $50 client. You're going to get the same level of service. The amount of work that you need is probably a little bit different, but the level of service is going to be the same, and that's important to me, that people understand that you're going to be treated the same, you're going to be listened to the same, and I, for better or worse, take your problems home with me because I'm going to try to work on them, and just trying to take that your life or as an individual or a small business and putting that down on paper in such a way that works best for you. That's my job, and I've made a career out of it. And now that I'm becoming more and more senior in that field or this field, what I'm trying to do is really kind of advise people better about decisions that they're looking to make, and how it's really going to impact them. And not just the 1 year view, but the 3 to 5, 10-year view. Mm-hmm. And again, trying to help people identify their goals and help them say, this is what I want, and this is what I want to accomplish, and this is what I want to stand for, maybe. And does it work? Can we make it happen? And I'm here to try to help people make that happen. And make more success stories.
Yeah. Okay, so last question, Michael.
I'm ready for it.
If there's anything that you can tell to the world right now, whether it be the business world, the general world, anything, what would you say?
I would just say don't give up. I think I'm just seeing a lot of people that I feel just stop. They get to a certain point and they stop. Mm-hmm. And that's right now for me, I'm mainly just seeing that in businesses. Small business owners are just like, well, I've had enough. And that impacts more than just them. It's in people that they hire and kind of the society or community that they've grown around their business. And I think it's so vital to people that you got to keep pushing. That's what life is. You don't just stop. Coronavirus has been terrible on everybody. It's a global pandemic. There'll be something else, I'm sure, in a few years. Hopefully it's further away than sooner, but it's saying, look, I'm stronger in this and we're going to move past it. And I think that's really the message that I try to talk to a lot of people about. And that's, I don't care if your business is hurting or you've been more successful than you've ever been in your life. It's, well, what are you doing next? Let's not stop. Let's keep going.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Michael, for people who are listening, where can people contact you and also locate you?
Sure. So I'm in Gainesville, Florida. My website is accountingpersonalized.com. And my office phone number is 352-224-9530. And I'm always here to chat. So, and I appreciate you having me on, Antoinette. It's always a pleasure.
Of course. I'll be sure to put your business info into the show notes when this show goes live as well, so that people can look that information up there too. Thank you so much for joining me. Can I see what you drew so I can get a little screenshot of it? All right, let me get my little. I got to see your face too. You got to smile and look excited. This is probably going to go on a promo, okay?
Oh, God. Okay.
All right, I got us. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for having me.